To kick things off, I'm delighted to welcome back onto the programme a good friend of the programme, and that's Bruce Jobson, who's an agricultural journalist and a good friend of us, as I say, who's joined us throughout the year to pass commentary upon all of these matters. As reflecting on the 12 days of Christmas, there's little scope really for the happy maids a milking. Is there any sector that you would say, hey, look at them, they're doing brilliantly, they've come through it all?
Thanks for the invite, Alistair. No, unfortunately, we've got worse and worse, and every sector has been losing money every year going over the past 20 years. 2022 has been the worst farming year in terms of total farm income this century, and it's not going to get any better, as you've alluded to. 2023 is just going to be as bad, if not worse. We've already got food inflation at about 30 to 35%. And unfortunately, the government hasn't come up with anything that's going to help farmers. I said that when Mr. Sunak was Chancellor in April this year, nothing for farmers. And the other thing is that we're now looking at the present DEFRA minister, who, if reports are led to believe to be true, said in the press this week that she's not going to help farmers and that she's not really going to do anything about food security. Well, we've dropped from 80% to about 55% food security. And last year, I remember, I think somebody was standing in, I think it was Dominic standing in for you. And on that show, I said East of Scotland farmers were cutting back 26% on their food production on vegetables. Farmers cannot afford to keep losing money. And that's what's happening year after year after year. And we cannot continue with this situation.
I assume on that basis, Bruce, then that you're a top journalist, so you know that the FT is a grown-up newspaper. It doesn't say silly things just to get splash headlines and readers. When they talk about the real prospect of food shortages next year, they're on the money.
They're on the money, and I've said that. I think on GBNews is on the money with Liam, and that's what's going to happen. But I'll give you a little incident, if you don't mind. And basically, there's a charity, Sustain, produced figures in the last week or two to show how badly farmers are being paid. They're getting something like 1% of profit on, for example, the staples of bread and milk, and bread and cheese, etc. And literally 1p or less than 1p on, for example, certain products in the system. In April, we discussed out on farm what was happening with eggs. It was 2p per egg farmers were losing then, 24 pence a dozen. And we haven't really got into the higher prices. So all these factors, including milk production, are going to be a problem because farmers are receiving 55% more for their milk, but they're no better off.
Bruce, you're not the only one to have said in the past on this programme that farmers are calling it a day in worrying numbers. We've spoken to the young farmers a couple of times and individuals who happen to be young people who do a bit of farming rather than just being members of the young farmers clubs. And they're saying it's increasingly difficult to attract skilled, clever young people into the industry.
Correct. And the reason is, Alistair, is young people today, no disrespect, don't want to work 7 days a week for nothing. And that's the situation. But you've just said something there. To be a farmer today, to work on a farm today, you've got to be very, very skilled. And you're working with these massive machines that have got high technology, they're £250,000, £500,000 for tractors, for combines. Sure. You have all those skills. And young people, they can get better jobs, better pay in other industries. And